Welcome back, everybody, to today's nugget. Well, here we are. It's Friday's lesson, and not only have we come to the end of the week, but here we are, and it's the end of the quarter, and what a study in Genesis it's been. And first of all, we discovered that Genesis is most important because this is where everything begins. Creation, humanity, the Sabbath, marriage, sin, evil, and above all, the promise of salvation. Some of the greatest themes, especially the great controversy, and our part in it, begin here. And as I reflect back over the lesson, this one word keeps repeating itself. It's legacy. When God created our first parents, we see that the legacy that God intended for humanity was a loving and intimate relationship with our Creator. God, Elohim, the Trinity, created man in the image of God so that we could enjoy a relationship with our Creator. We come to Adam and Eve, and they sin. Our first parents were created with free will, and they used their free will to rebel against God. God gave them love and a paradise to live in, and they repay Him with mistrust and rebellion. And what does our first parents leave us with? A legacy of sin, mistrust, pain, suffering, and death. But God comes to the rescue, and He offers humanity salvation. He makes them a promise that one day a child would be born, and that child would be their Savior from sin. That child would be their Messiah. And for the rest of Genesis, we see that everything God does is proof that He intends to keep His promise to Adam and Eve. Genesis provides us with an amazing picture of who God is. Every time humanity fails, God comes to the rescue and to redeem. We see God coming down to Adam and Eve to save them. We see God who comes down to Cain. He comes down to Noah. He comes down to Babel. He comes down to Abraham. And He comes down to Sodom. And in the end, He even comes down to Jacob. Whether it be creation, redemption, or judgment, we see a God who desires to be up close and personal with His creation. In Genesis, we see a God filled with compassion and grace. Even in judgment, God offered a warning and a way of escape. But that was the plan, right? In Genesis, we see a God who would create beings with free will, knowing that any time they would use that free will to leave Him. And He knew that decision to leave Him, to rebel and sin against Him, would result in our death. So what's a God to do? Before He created us, He had already made a way of escape. A child would be born into a family, and through that family, God would provide a lamb that would take away the sin of the world. Through this family, the world would be blessed. And as Jacob closed his eyes, he could rest in God's promise to bless his family, because through Jacob's family, God would bless the world. Messiah would come because God promised, and God always keeps His word. Well, that was our study for this week, and that was our study for this quarter. Again, we thank you for stopping by and journeying with us. We thank you for all the comments. And again, we want to invite you to come back as we get into next quarter's lesson, which is entitled, well, it's the crucible. And we're going to look at what God is going to do to not only save us, but to grow us in Jesus. You take care. God bless. Happy Sabbath.